Welcome to the Teacher Career Coach podcast with your new host, Elizabeth Sudo. She started her teaching career in 2014. She found she needed a career change after all the changes the pandemic brought to the teaching world. So she transitioned outside of the classroom into an administrative assistant role and now works as an operations manager for a tech startup. Get ready for discussions on all things related to teacher transitions, interview prep, addressing burnout in the classroom, and so much more. Here's your host, Elizabeth Sudo. Hi, welcome back to the Teacher Career Coach podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Sudo. Today, I interview Erin Hoerr. Erin is a customer success manager for a global telecommunications company with a strong background in education. Prior to her role as a customer success manager, she taught middle school science for 16 years. She transitioned from teaching to the corporate world in 2023 at a time when the tech market was very unstable. Her adaptability, perseverance, and tenacity helped her stand out in a saturated job market. Join us today to hear about perseverance in Erin's job search and journey. Hope you enjoy. Welcome, Erin.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
We're super excited to get to know you today, and we like to start this off by hearing about how you got into education, what drew you to teaching in the first place.
So I would say teaching's something that I always knew I wanted to do. Even really ever since I was a little girl, I would play, teacher with my siblings, and it was just the direction I always wanted to head. And I started teaching right out of college, age 21. Teaching was all my professional experience up till my career change.
And what was the point where you decided you wanted to leave education?
I would say probably the last 4 years, I'd kind of contemplated it. I'd started to get burnt out. I just wore a lot of different hats as a teacher, planning field trips, being the RTI coordinator, doing all the different extra tasks that are required of a teacher. But my burnout really accelerated when my husband and I had our second son, and I just found it harder to juggle the roles of being a mom and a teacher. And I just always felt, on the day, some days I'm a great mom and other days I'm not a great teacher. And it was this constant juggle. My last year in the classroom was one of those kind of perfect storm years where you just get every once in a while where there's a lot of behaviors and not as much support. And I just knew that for myself, for my family, I needed to make a change. And I always kind of like that sentiment of bloom where you're planted. And I just started realizing more and more the conditions I'm in are not helping me to bloom. And I need to change my setting. And so then I set out to look to see, what's next. And because I had defined myself as a teacher for so long, it took me a little while to get clarity on what my next direction would be.
Thank you for sharing. I think that'll really resonate with a lot of parents, with the juggling career and motherhood. And you talk a little bit about narrowing it down and finding career clarity. So how did you know after teaching for 16 years, and knowing since you were a kid, how did you narrow it down to customer success?
I stumbled across the Teacher Career Coach podcast. And so it is a full circle moment to now be featured on this today. And with Daphne Gomez's course, she really kind of described different buckets of jobs that teachers tend to go to. And so I backwards kind of engineered, designed what aspects of teaching I liked and what I wanted my day-to-day to look like. I knew I still needed to feel like I was helping people every day because that was a part of education that I loved, working with kids. I knew I couldn't just sit behind a computer. I needed some people interaction. And after 16 years in the classroom, I had, gotten used to a set salary. I wasn't entry level anymore. And so I knew this was kind of the threshold that my family had grown used to me making. And so that really all led me to customer success.
And then you mentioned a little bit about the teacher career coach course and how that helped you, and we love to hear that. Would you elaborate a little bit on how those resources helped you stand out?
Yeah, the teacher career coach was really like therapy for me because it's people who are in the same boat of wanting to make a change and kind of not knowing how and where to go next. I often felt uncomfortable talking about, leaving teaching with my teacher friends. Like it was a great resource of getting clarity on my next steps. But then Aspireship, once I really kind of settled on, all right, CSM is what I'm interested in, Aspireship and taking the courses to learn about what customer success means and what that job entails. What does a typical day to day look like for a customer success manager? Just filled me even more to know this is what I want. This is the right direction. And it gave me a lot of power to know, all right, I'm headed in the right steps and I can make this move. Then I would say about March when contracts came out, I made the bold move not to sign my teaching contract, even though I did not have a next job lined up, which is very scary. And that same week, Silicon Valley Bank crashed and it really upended the tech market. And so it wasn't too long before I realized, okay, I've sent out 250 resumes and it's April. I'm going to need a career coach. And so then I found Carly Agar on LinkedIn, and she really helped me to just perfect my interview skills and to know how to network on LinkedIn. Because teaching's what I knew, you interview with the principal and maybe the district kind of signs off with an approval. For corporate America, there's a lot of competition. And in my current role, over 2,000 people applied in one day for the role. And so Carly Agar's course really helped me to know, what do I need to do to stand out in a very hard market right now?
That's so good to hear, and especially how you utilize those resources to your advantage and to help you stand out. And as we further go into this, I'd love to hear a little bit more about this job search process. You mentioned the bank crashed, over 2,000 applications were for some of these roles you were applying for. So, how were you able to stay mentally clear and persevere during this tough time?
It really was hard, honestly. There was so many times I just felt like, I'll just go work at Costco. Like, this is too hard. But I think because I put all my chips into the middle of the table, all cards were in, and I said, I'm not coming back next year, that I didn't really have a choice in failing. My family depended on two incomes. And so I knew I had to keep pushing. And so throughout the whole 11 months, I really would take a step back after each interview and say, all right, what can I do better? I got a first round. I'm not getting to a second round. What do I need to do different? And just analyzing every step of what I was doing to make it more systematic. I think also I tried to prevent myself from burnout by using a lot of Carly's strategies, by submitting, she calls it supported resumes, supported applications. I'm not just spraying out all these applications all over. I'm following up with the recruiter. I'm sending Loom videos to say, this is why I'm a good candidate for this role. And that really helped me stand out for my current role now.
I love hearing the problem solving approach, looking at why did this not happen or why did this happen? Were there any things outside of that you focused on, like physically or mentally, that you did with your family or friends to recharge as well? I know in our teacher community, a lot of people are struggling with just the amount of time it takes to apply to these positions if they're working full time or even when they're not working full time. It's just so consuming.
Yeah, it's a full-time job to get a job. It really and truly is. I've got two little kids. They're both real active in sports. I was still teaching. I finished out my year. And my last day as a teacher was May 31st. So I was still working full time for a good portion of my job search. And so I knew I had to cut time from somewhere. I cut out TV almost totally just to take different courses and listen to podcasts because I knew I needed to level up. I relied also so heavily on my family and my friends and my husband and my mom, just because the whole job search process is overwhelming. And it's so hard not to take it personal when you get rejected from an interview or to seem like, why are they not picking me? Why am I not good enough? I'm more than just a teacher. And so leaning on your support system and just mentally trying to take care of myself.
Oh, that's so important. I'm glad you had those support family members and friends. I know you had a couple different numbers and data about how many jobs you applied to.
Yeah, so my first role outside of the classroom actually wasn't the role I'm in now. It was a customer support role. It's because it took so many applications to get where I'm at. It was close to 500 applications that I applied for. I think 11 first round interviews and only a couple then second round interviews. For my customer success role, it took 6 interviews to get here. And so I'm not sure that that's always standard, but it's a lot.
So you went into customer support
Yeah.
right after teaching. So do you feel like that helped propel you into the customer success role at all? Was there a correlation there?
Yes and no. I think a lot of people that I've met trying to get a role in customer success struggle because they want the perfect job. There's a lot of avenues into being a customer success manager. You can work as customer support first, you can work in sales, and once you're in a company, then you can kind of move around to the department you want to be in. For me, I still got paid through the summer through July. July 31st was my last teaching paycheck. And August 1st, I started a customer support role. And I knew it was a temporary position. They were looking for a teacher who knew the Canvas learning management system that I had used. And it was a temporary role. If this could become a long-term role, this would open up doors for me. There just wasn't a spot at the time I needed it. But it gave me 8 more weeks of still getting paid something. And I got to try out working fully remotely and knew that that's awesome.
Mhm.
That gave me so much flexibility that I didn't have as a teacher. And so it almost fueled my search even more because I knew I was getting really close.
And are you currently remote in your position now?
Yet my position now is 100% remote. It's actually 20% more pay than a 16-year teacher with a master's degree. Even though my position is entry level, there's a lot of room for advancement. Someone on my team has moved up already in 2 years' time to customer success level 2. I think, given another year, I'll be right there also with a bump in pay for that too. The health benefits have been better. I have unlimited paid time off, which I had to ask, what does that even mean? I don't know what that means. The other side is very green, is all I have to say.
That's so great to hear, and I'm so happy for you. Would you tell us a little bit about this 6 process interview
Yeah.
situation?
The first round was a screening with HR. The second round was with my boss. The third round was with a higher up director. Then there was a panel with a lot of my peers. So there were 6 people asking questions. Then there's kind of 2 more check offs. I was competing with other experienced CSMs. And so I knew I had to really prep and prepare. Honestly, it was scary and exciting all at the same time. I think one of the rounds was even a sales presentation, which I I didn't know anything about that, but I looked at it as a lesson plan where, okay, how would I make this exciting? How would I pitch this? Just as a teacher would. When I finally got the call back that it was me, it was like just tears of joy because I could finally stop looking. After 500 applications, I could finally stop looking. But in all the 11 months' time, I really only went without a paycheck for 8 weeks. So I had promised my husband, I will not bankrupt us. I will land on my feet. If I got to work 2 other jobs to make up for it, I will do that. But I need a little space to grow and to see what I can land outside of teaching.
That motivation right there just makes my heart so happy. Didn't sign your notice in March. It's kind of this risky thing, but you had the confidence, you built the confidence, you learned, you grew, and you successfully made the transition.
It was scary because I'm not a risk taker. Like, we don't even buy lotto tickets. I'm not a gambler, but I knew I had to bet on myself that I have a lot of transferable skills. And when I started this process, I didn't know that because teaching was what I had done. And it took a lot to decompress and dissect all those emotions and beliefs about myself to even feel worthy of this role.
I noticed you mentioned this correlation between when you were planning your sales presentation, thinking about, oh, I've done this in teaching. How do I make it engaging and clear? And sometimes when we move forward into new careers, we forget that there are these like soft skills that we inherently know that are applicable to new careers.
Yeah, there's so much that overlaps. It's just hard at first to see the connections. But I knew if I couldn't make the connections, I shouldn't expect a future boss to do that. It helped a lot to do mock interviews, and I did that with Carly Agar's program. I even did a mock with Aspireship, and I'm in some different CSM groups on LinkedIn, and I just said, hey, will anybody interview me? I'm on round 4, and I met one of the biggest goats in the CSM industry from that. And it just kept giving me more confidence that I can do this. I can compete with other experienced CSMs. The market was saturated at the time I was looking because there were so many tech layoffs from the bank crash.
And you can do this, and you did do this. Tell us a little bit about a day in the life of a CSM.
It's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. I set my own schedule. So there's typically 3 to 4 hours of meetings with customers. Sometimes once a week, there's a meeting with my boss just to sync on my accounts. There's about 4 hours of admin work or logging gain site notes, but I make my schedule, which means it's flexible to what my family needs it to be. If my kids have a doctor's appointment, I'm not panicked that a sub won't pick up for this set time. My day revolves around really retaining customers, so making sure they're satisfied with the products that my company and I sell. If they need tech support, I help liaise with the support team to organize those calls just to make sure they get a resolution. And then I'm looking to see what business problems are my customers having that we offer solutions for. So then I'm looking for upsell opportunities.
You mentioned earlier that there's different levels of customer success managers at your company. What does the growth trajectory look like for this career and at your company?
Right now, I'm entry level. I'm CSM 1. The next step is CSM 2. Then there's a senior manager and a director. And my company is really fabulous, and there's a lot of strong female leaders. Even if I never make it to CSM 2, what's cool about my position is a large part of it is a base salary, but there's a component that's commission. And so that was new for me around teaching. So the harder I work and the more I sell, the more money I make anyways. And so by coming from a teaching background, I already was used to working so much more and giving so much more of myself. It's been easy to hit my quotas.
It is a lot different from depending on if you're teaching in a public school district with the set salary schedule, years of experience. Does that motivate you, being able to have that aspect of it?
Yes, because as a teacher, I always did more. I always just kept giving and giving, and I wasn't always financially compensated for those things. It's just part of the roles you take. As you get better, you do more and you just keep giving more. And here I'm recognized for that. I've already been asked to help train some of the new hires, and I've been asked to sit in on the panel interview for those new hires. And so I've already seen upward growth, so to speak, and I'm only in month 7 in this role. And so my boss and my leaders have recognized, hey, this girl works her butt off. She's not just a teacher.
Do you have a favorite part of the day or a favorite part of the job?
Honestly, I think I've just landed in the perfect spot for me, that my teammates have been so accepting of me. I didn't know if they would embrace somebody who's never done the same role as them, but they have been excited to have me on the team. And I guess my favorite part is the people that I'm working with. And that was also a big part of the part I loved about teaching. Was I love the teacher camaraderie and the PLCs and planning with other teachers too. So you want to stick with people you're happy to work with.
Absolutely. You talked about how you're able to take your sons to doctor's appointments or sporting events. Can you tell us a little bit about your work-life balance now compared to where it was?
It's so much better because I dictate the schedule. If I need to run to a dentist appointment, I put an hour on the team calendar and nobody questions that. My work just still gets done and it's not a big deal. I used to have so much anxiety about if I needed to be out as a teacher. One, would a sub pick up? And if they didn't pick up, they would call it farm out, where each teacher on the hall would take 2 or 3 kids. And then I felt like I was burdening my other teacher colleagues. And when you have small kids in daycare, somebody's going to get sick. And so I always felt very guilty to take any time off for myself, even though that was part of the benefits of being a teacher. So work-life balance is so much better.
Tell us what you've learned about yourself in this process.
I don't think of myself as being scrappy, but I think through this process, I really was. I almost had to prove it to myself that I could do it. And just being unrelenting, just to keep on going, I feel like I set a good example for my family and my kids of mom can do, she can do anything she sets her mind out to, that she can do this. And I really learned who my true support system was. When I would tell teachers, this is what I was thinking of doing, I got mixed emotions and reactions from people, because some people just was like, you're leaving without a next job lined up? That doesn't make sense. And so I just really realized, how supportive my good friends are, my husband is, my mom and my dad are, just who I can rely on in those difficult times.
Erin, thank you so much for sharing your teacher transition story and teaching us about your job search process and about being a customer success manager. I learned a lot. I'm excited for everyone to listen, and we appreciate your time. Thanks so much, Erin.
Thank you for having me.